Hello and welcome to this Factorio tutorial. My name is Negative Root. Thank you for joining me. I had a bit of a request to do some of these tutorials, that is, and teach people a little bit about some of the concepts of the game. Now this is going to be tutorial number 6 or 7, I think, and we're going to cover logistical robots. Now you'll notice these little buggers flying around doing things and generally being really cool. These are logistical robots. Now what they do basically is they carry goods from one location to another. So very handy when your factory gets a bit large. This is actually the factory from my Let's Play. So I've set this up gradually over about, I think I'm up to 20 hours in this one. So a little while, quite a bit of time invested in this one. Generally logistical robots you can get to quite quickly. So about 10 hours or so, it doesn't take too long. To do logistical robots, let's start with the basics. So you need to build the robots themselves and the roboports. Now they are researched in here. So logistic robots, here it is. So it's a requirement of both flight and robotics. These are fairly early techs. They don't take a lot to research. Only red and green science, and then you can access it, and it allows construction robots, which are one red science pack, one green science pack by 50. So 50 of both. And that will give you access to the roboport, the construction robot, the storage chest, the passive provider chest, and also the ability to rebuild things that get destroyed. Now I'll show you the ghosting function a little bit later. I just need to start a clock here and make sure I've got an eye on the time. I don't want this to go for too long. So that is that side of the research. This is the other side, logistics system. Now these two are the big things. The requester chest is probably the biggest. The requester chest will request things into your inventory, and I'll show you how that works very shortly. So the first thing I'm going to show you is actually how to build the robots. Now the roboport is very simple. You need steel, gear wheels, and advanced circuits. So naturally, logistical robots are going to come after you set up the oil system. So you need to set up oil first and get these building, because they require plastics. So once you've got that building, you can get these red circuits onto a line along with some pipe and some steel plates to build the engine units, and you can also set some aside to do the roboports. The roboports are the base for the robots to go back to and recharge. They all run on electricity, so you need to make sure that they have enough charge to work. Otherwise they'll move really slowly and be generally pretty inefficient. Once you've got the engine units being built somewhere, they just require some steel and some pipe and some gear wheels. Very simple. You need to build the electric engine units. Now the electric engine units require an engine unit, a green circuit, which you should have well under control because you need them for several things earlier on in the piece to actually research logistical robots, and some lube. So lube, pretty easy to do. Once you've done that, you can build the electric engine units, and then they go into another assembly that builds the flying robot frames. Now again, we have another item that comes from oil, them being batteries. So build sulfuric acid, and then a chemical plant making batteries with iron and copper plate. These robot frames take a long time to build. I'll just click that and pick those up. You see that these take a very long time to build. What happens is, let me just set this going again. Oh, I don't want that one. Let's get this one. They take a very long time to build. Once they're built, you can actually build these robots very quickly. So if you watch the crafting speed, boom, done. So very quick to build them, the robots themselves. The flying robot frames are still the same, are the hard thing. You can see this one's still going, and now it's done. And it'll build 4 of these. So you need to build those to start with, and then you need to plonk down some roboports. Now you notice when I bring up this, it has some orange squares and some green squares. Now I'll just move outside my base so I can show you exactly what it looks like when you're out. in the open a bit. So this is how it looks, okay? So you come to place one down and that's what you've got. Now when you place two, if you can get the orange squares to overlap, you'll see those yellow lines. That means they're connected. Now any resource that's in that orange area will now be shared between the robot ports and any logistical robots that are in the network. So this is important to remember, because if you go and place a robot port off yonder, so over here somewhere, and don't connect it up using those yellow lines, it will be part of a different logistical network and resources won't be shared between them. So say for example you have an advanced mining base and you want to get things from that mining base back to your big base, you're probably going to be better off using like a train or something, because the other downfall of logistical robots is they don't have high throughput, at least not in the early stages. You can see that it takes a lot of them to carry a lot of resources. This is actually moving around some full oil barrels, and it takes a lot of them to move any. Right, let's start covering off on how to actually go about using them. Now on any build, let's find something to automate. Let's automate splitters. Fairly simple thing. The requester chest is going to be very important because that requests in the items that we need. What we'll do is we'll build it just off this thing here. So we're going to place down a requester chest. That is the blue ones. And into that requester chest we're going to request the items that we need. So we need, firstly, yellow transport belt. Now you want to set this request to an amount that gives you a good buffer and allows the production to run smoothly, but don't have it so many that it's like, oh my god, we need all the belts that we have. We need iron plate, which will be here, 550, and also one last thing, green circuits by 50. So that's that. Now we need to put them into the factory just like normal, and then we need to take them out just like normal. Now to put things into the logistics system, they need to be either placed into a active provider chest, so the purple ones. I very rarely use them, just as a side note. I find that a combination of the passive providers and the requesters work best, because the active providers will actively ask logistical robots to come and pick up whatever's in it and move it into the logistical system. So the passive providers, it will just sit there until it's needed. The requester chest will request in resources so that they're available for whatever to use. So you can see that this is requesting in lots of things, and because I put that to 800, there's a bit of overflow coming in. And the last thing is storage. So storage is just where they'll throw down, the robots will use it as a bit of a place where they can put things. So for example, you can see they're thrown, just a few odds and ends in here, things that I don't need, I'm not using. They can just put them aside and have them handy in storage. So that's quite important to have. So going back to our little build that we're doing here, if we throw that down, that'll start making splitters. Now what I actually want to do is I just want to restrict this to say make about 50 of them. That's plenty. Now what this will do is this smart inserter, you can set it to a logistical network condition, and what that means is it'll work to a certain condition. So what I've just told it to do is to only work when there's less than 50 splitters. So when there's 51, this smart inserter won't work. It won't put them in, and that means that'll back up and it'll all stop basically. You can restrict it on the input as well for a more precise control. I just normally do it on the outflow because that's just easy. So this will build, and now this will go into our logistical system. Now you can see on the right hand side I've got a bunch of numbers. You can see 16K for green circuits, 9.7 for coal, 9.4 for batteries. That is a count of what is currently available in the system. Now you'll notice that the iron plate, the smart fuel, the copper plate, the landmines are all restricted to a round number. I've restricted them using green green inserters to make sure that the things don't go crazy. Whenever something is in the logistical system, it is available for the robots to move around. So for example, because I have plate and circuits in the logistical system, I can place a call on them and get the robots just to deliver it. So rather than having to use a belt and route these resources in, I would have to route in transport belt, iron plate and electronic circuits. I can just say, well, it's there somewhere, robots, go get it for me and throw it in the box so we can use it, and off it'll go. Now, as I said before, the downside of the robots is their throughput is quite slow. They only work when you've got a tricky situation where you need to get resources in and out in a small amount of space. You can see this build here that I've done is quite compact. I've got 3 assemblers, I'll just turn this off, 3 requester chests and 3 passive providers. So these assemblers are making solar panels, accumulators and substations. So each requester chest will request what it needs, and then that will allow the factory to do what it wants. This will request what it needs and off it'll go. And in this way I can add in whatever I want to the logistical network. It's just a matter of placing down another factory, putting it into a passive provider, and off you go. With older factories, what you can do is you can upgrade them over time. So for example, here is my factory. This is a assembly machine 1. So very early on in the piece I put this together. It's one of the first things I did. What I did was I knew what I wanted to do, and I created a box here. I've since upgraded that to a passive provider because that allows me to use all of these resources now in the logistical system. It wasn't built when I had the logistical system, but I had it in mind. So I did that nice and early on in the piece. Same with repair packs. I had them automated pretty much from day dot. And I put in a passive provider, and now that puts these repair packs into the logistical system. So that is pretty much how to use them. The other thing you can do is actually use the player character to request things, and this is really lovely because now what I can do is I can say, well, I know there's splitters somewhere in my system and I want 10 of them, and what it means is those robots will go find them, and if you're in an orange square, you can see that orange, that's the logistical area. They will go and get those resources and deliver them to your door. I'm doing the same thing currently with piercing shotgun shells and rockets. So anytime there's a rocket or anything, they will bring it to me and drop it in my lap. So right now this is actually waiting for explosives. Explosives. Ooh, look at that. We have no sulfur. Interesting. So you can see that that's why that has stopped. Now that just dropped off the splitters. So you can see now I have 12. Now it won't go exact to what you order, but it's a really good way of going. So now I've got these splitters that I can use to build stuff with. Yeah, so that's my thoughts on logistical robots. They're great in moderation. You can do everything with them, but I think they have a place, and that place is with care. Don't use them all the time. If you need something that needs a huge amount of throughput, for example your furnace setup, I think this kind of thing is better just to use conveyor belts because they work all the time, they're not a drain on the power, and they're really fast. They can carry a lot of resources quickly. Thank you for joining me in this episode. I'll see you around for the next one.